Hey yo, I'm Miss Linnea Larkin. Today I've got a live video demo for you to watch on throwing 2 cylinders. Okay, so today we're doing it from start to finish, and we're going to see some things that you haven't seen from the beginning. We're going to use all of the tools. So up until this point, really all we've used is the sponge, am I right? And the nail tool. We have used the nail tool a few times. So I like to just get that a little bit wet. And I like to make sure that this is already pretty centered, so I slap center it in my hands first. Make sure that the bottom is rounded upward, if anything, because I don't want it to create a hole down there. I get it where I want it. Ooh, dear me. Okay, and then I'll slap center it with 2 hands, and then I'll do it with 1 hand, and then I'll seal it. That didn't feel like it stuck. Whatever, who cares? Okay, here we go. So we're gonna go top speed. I don't like how low this is already, but whatever, it is what it is. What?
You make like no sound.
Well, you want to be like graceful about it, or else it doesn't go faster. It just goes harder. Okay. So I always like to do the outside first just to get it, see how off center it is. So if I just push in with my fingertips and drag toward me right from the beginning, and this clay is a little bit on the dry side, so it's a little bit hard, but I'm stronger than some dried up dirty clay. Okay, so it is sealed pretty good. I'm going to get some more of that base down because it's hard for me to get my wrist in the right spot when it's really wide like that. So if you have like a big tree trunk, get rid of that. That's not helping your leverage. You need to be able to shove it. So I'm doing one more outer pull with my fingers. You can see the spiral from it. We're going to get this centered this time. Hold it, breathe through it, and then gently, gently release. Now we're looking good. I'm going to bring up the tree trunk that's not quite centered. And now I'm feeling centered. I'm good to go. I'm going to get my carrot with a nice wet brush. I go halfway between the middle to the outside. I'm going to angle it downward. I've got my shoulder up. Once that carrot pops off, I'm going to get rid of it. I'm left with a nipple. I'm going to go past the nipple. Now this is really important. Once my finger, the true corner, the bottom corner of my finger is truly in the middle, that means the far side will be digging into the clay right here. Have you guys seen me show you that? It's really important. So you should feel pressure from the clay hitting you here, and you should feel pressure from the clay hitting you on the far side, okay? And I like to rely on my senses for that. Once I feel it, I'm not pushing down. I'm not pushing. You should not start drilling until you're straight up and down. I get my fingers straight up and down. Some of y'all think this is straight up and down. That is not straight up and down, and I just hold it. Once you get your finger in the place, it'll leave a little dent there. And you can literally see, is my circle dancing? If your circle's not dancing, you're good to go. If your circle is dancing, you need to recenter and start again. But if you go lower than this, you're going to have to restart the whole thing. Okay? So it's really important that when you're going from this to this, you're not pushing down really. You're just feeling it. Then you're going to go straight down. Nice and slow. If you go too fast, it's never good, okay? Now, I'm pretty good at telling where that middle is, but if you need to, you guys want the thickness of your thumb. Everybody look at the thickness of your thumb. That's the max, okay? Any thicker than that, and your piece, the wheel has to be stopped when you do this, or else you're gonna cut a giant hole out of the bottom. And so right there, I'd say that's exactly about a thickness of a thumb. This is a little bit more clay at the bottom than you really want, but the reason why we want to start with a thick bottom is because you guys have never trimmed before. So you're gonna make lots of mistakes when you're trimming, so we wanna have some extra clay down there, okay? Now, what we're gonna do at this point, I've got a hole in the middle, I'm switching hands, okay? This hand is wet on the outside, but inside, but not on the outside, so I'm gonna give it a little dunk. I don't want it to stick on what's in there, and I can still be going rather fast right now. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my longest finger down inside, I'm latched on, I'm always stabilized. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull a cave at the very bottom, and I wanna try to keep it nice and flat. Did you guys hear an air bubble pop? My bad. Okay. I've got a nice cave in there. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull that all the way back, nice and slow. And I should be able to see all the way down inside to the very bottom of my cave. Now the circle that you make at the bottom, it should be flat with 90-degree angles. Okay, so there should be a 90-degree corner at the very bottom. If yours looks like a U shape, when you're doing your cave, you're not going far enough in the corner. Does that make sense to everybody? So at this point, I want my floor to be about 3 fingers wide. The reason why it should be, Aurora, 3 fingers wide is because I want to be able to, it needs to be wide enough that I can get my hand in there. And really that's this, like even that, my hand's bigger than 3 fingers. You know what I'm saying? So I have to really kind of scrunch to get in there. Now, what's the next thing I got to do right now? I've got the cave, the walls are open. What do I got to do to the floor? I got to get a flat bottom. Now, when I'm doing this, this is so crucial, not just because aesthetically we want it to look pretty, and we do, but because this is going to compress the base. You're not trying to go deeper, you're just trying to get it nice and consistent. I go all the way to the core and then back, all the way to the core and then back. Even if, like right now, mine's pretty flat, but I gotta keep going because when your pot starts drying, if you haven't compressed this, you get what's called an S-crack. So any kind of, if it's not been really tightly packed down right there, it wants to dry at different rates. And then it ends up cracking down there. Okay, and that's 5 times I've gone back and forth. And I have a 90-degree bottom floor, so I'm good to go. And so I'm gonna start doing a pull. When I do a pull, I want wet walls and a dry bottom. So every time I do a pull, I wanna make sure that I'm good. Before I can begin a pull, I gotta assess if my clay is precarious, okay? I don't wanna start doing a major pull if I have a really weak area. Does anybody see an area that might be a little bit troublesome? Abby? The top is a little bit on the thick side, okay? But really what I'm concerned about is this big chubby bit. Does everybody see this big chubby bit? This big chubby bit means that as I'm pulling, this area is gonna get weaker and weaker, and there's thicker clay on top. What's that gonna wanna do? It's gonna wanna collapse, okay? So before I do a proper pull, I'm gonna smooth out this chubby bit. I'm just gonna do a wee bitty little pull there to make my walls somewhat even. Now the goal at the very end of your pot is for your walls from the very bottom to the very top to be the same thickness. That's the goal. But that's not gonna happen right at the beginning, right? You guys can tell how chubby my bottom is. While you're in the process of getting even walls, you want thicker at the bottom and thinner at the top, because it just makes sense. You don't want thick at the top and skinny at the bottom. It's going to collapse. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Now, what is higher? My floor on the inside or the bat on the outside? Which is higher in the air? The floor. Okay. So right now, this is the awkward part. I want everybody to like put your hands facing each other. Feel how awkward that is with your wrists. If it feels natural, there's something wrong with you. Okay, so when I get to this point and I'm trying to tell kids how to do it properly, they're like, oh, that feels weird. Oh, well, congratulations. It feels weird to all of us, okay? That's what has to happen. Your hands have to be able to talk to each other. Your fingertips have to, and it has to angle down. It's like an upside down prayer. Everybody do an upside down prayer. It feels awful. If it feels natural, you are doing it wrong, okay? It has to feel bad. That's pottery, okay? So what I'm gonna do here is, and it hurts, especially when you're extended, this is like even more unnatural, okay? But I have to have my fingers touching each other. They're facing each other so they can talk to each other. All right, so what I'm gonna do is they're facing each other. See how awkward my wrists are right now? I'm gonna put a little dent on the outside. See how I made just a wee bitty little ledge right there? Now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to catch up because my bottom hand is lower. It's gonna bring that little bit of clay up. When I get right below, everybody see how my sponge is making an S curve? Everybody see that? That's what we want. We want them touching. We don't want them like this. Are they touching right now? No. All right. So on the inside hand, you're going to be stretching it outward. On the outside hand, you're going to be stretching it back inward, but they're going to move together. As soon as you divide, what that means is maybe this one's higher, or what it means is maybe they're not lined up. See how they're not? I'm just going to stab through my clay that way. You have to have equal pressure on the inside and the outside. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay, so everybody see my ridge there? You don't want, that is almost an extreme ridge. You want to do small pulls when you're starting, okay? So I've got my hands here, they're lined up. My inside hand, if you could see it and feel it, there's a ridge on the inside as well, and I'm pushing the clay wide, okay? So as I'm pushing it wide, right below it is my outside hand pushing it right back in. So since this is pulling it out and this is pushing it in, it has nowhere to go but up. Okay? Now what's really important is your clay is naturally going to want to get wider when you're stretching it. You want to go with it. Okay? If it gets wider, you go wider. All right? But you're going to try not to go too wide. Now the reason why this is almost too much clay is because see how thick the top is and see how much thinner the bottom is? So you really have to have a lot of control. Now see if I push it too hard, see how I'm flattening that top right there? I don't want to do that. That's where I want to go with the flow. Okay? And I'll finish that pull out. Now what happened to my pot? How did my shape change? It got taller, that's good. What else happened to the rim there? Am I still a volcano? No. So when I'm done with a pull, I'm going to wet the walls and then I'm going to dry the bottom. You always want wet walls and a dry bottom. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to choke. So I'm using 4 points, my 2 thumbs and my knuckles of my first finger. I'm going to get the smallest area and then I'm going to slowly bring it up. Okay, now I'm back to a volcano shape and I'm ready to do another pull. I also always compress. Now look at how my wall is not flat anymore. That one's not bad, honestly. I would just keep going if it was me, but whatever. I'm gonna go ahead and cut that off to make it flat for all of you. So remember, I'm pushing hard, going slow through, and then I lift it off. And now I can really tell that it's flat again. Okay, so now the top here, it could get maybe slightly thinner, but this is about as thin as you're gonna get. But now it's like extra thick. Just down that far is that much thicker. Okay, so I got to keep going. I'm going to start at the bottom again. I got my fingers inside and they're talking and it's awkward. Look at how my thumb can't touch my outside hand. It misses it. It's all lonely up here and it's wobbly. So it's just waiting for my outside hand to catch up. So I put a little ledge on the outside. I start pressing on the inside, stretching that clay outward. And then my outside hand, look at, as soon as I can, I rest on my outside hand. Now you guys, my wheel is spinning so stinking slow. I have to go as slow as the wheel is going. So do you see how I have to go like snail pace here? Yeah, it is, when you're going slow, like you just kind of got to finish it. Okay, so now see how I got some height on that? I'm gonna get wet walls. Get a little bit of speed on me. Dry bottom. I don't want a canyon in there. I don't want it to corrode the bottom. I'm going to use wet fingers to choke in the side. And right now my walls still feel pretty good and I still have a volcano shape. So I'm going to go ahead, but look at how tall my piece is. So I'm going to wet my hand because I don't want it to stick to the side of my pot. Okay. I'm going to do another pull really quick. Would you just stick it on the front of my wheel? Thank you, dearie. So that one got lots of height. What's the next thing I got to do right now?
Choke.
What?
Choke.
Choke. I got to choke. I'm going to get wet walls and a dry bottom first, though. Because once I choke, it's going to be harder to get my hand inside of there.
Oh.
I almost lost my sponge, but I got it. Okay.
Is this when we start using the stick?
Yes. At this point, you can use the stick. I'm going to go ahead and get this straight up and down. I think at this point, a volcano isn't really likely. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one more pull because I can feel how thick the clay is at the bottom. But see how skinny my clay is at the top? So right about here, when it's a little bit chubbier, is where I'm going to stop the pull. Does that make sense? I don't want to keep, what you don't want is a really tight rim like this. I've seen some of you guys do this. That's going to be sharp. That's not useful at all. Okay. So you always want to make sure after every pull that you've got a nice flat rim, a nice thickish. So wet walls. See if I can do better this time.
It's time for the stick.
Oh, you're fine. I'm fine. We're good. I gotta stick my whole hand in there to do this next pull anyway. Okay. So let's go ahead and get the last pull. Now, how high do your guys' cylinders need to be?
5 inches.
5 inches. So since this is my last one, I'm really trying to make sure that my walls are super thin and even. So right here, I'm easing off. You guys can tell I'm kind of easing off here. And I'm just gonna blend that back in. Okay. Now, I probably did 5 pulls, I'd say. What do you think? 5 pulls, maybe? I'm going to get wet walls and a dry bottom because I'm not quite done yet. Now, my walls are looking pretty good. I'm not going to lie. What I want to do here is I want to get either a volcano shape or straight up and down. So see how I have a slight waist right here? I'm going to start there, and I'm just going to go straight up and knock that in a little bit. Now, what I have to do, and this is a new skill that you guys have not done before, is I have to compress my walls, okay? So to compress your walls, you're gonna use a hard rib, which is our wooden rib. I'm gonna put my hand inside of there, so it's gonna kind of stretch. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the side of my inside hand, and I'm gonna push those walls out to the outside where the rib is. So I wanna have it straight up and down. Don't hold your rib at an angle. You want to keep that edge straight up and down. You want to hold it really tight here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go in. This is going to make my walls nice and compressed, but it wants to kind of stick. Do you see how it's kind of sticking? Mm-hmm. So I got to be careful. I'm going to gently let go. Put some water on there before I touch it, because if I don't, it's going to stick to my hand. I'm going to suck up any excess there. I'm going to choke in the belly. I'm going to choke in the rim. Okay. Now, this is more like the beautiful end game. This is like a soft rubber rib. So you can also use this guy to get it straight up and down. See how my top is kind of moving? So I'm going to move my hand up a wee bit. Okay, now the last thing we're going to do on the piece, see how much thickness there is at the bottom? We want it to be consistent. So this is the hardest skill, okay? This is the wooden knife. To do the wooden knife, you need all 4 fingers spread out. You don't want to put them all right here or else it's unbalanced. And you have to have that, your weakest finger is doing all the work, okay? So you got to have that real nice and low. And we're going to keep this kind of straight up and down, but I'm going to kind of dig the bottom in and then go straight down, okay? What's doing the cutting is the tip and this edge. Does that make sense? So this is going to stay on the outside, and I cut it from the top down. I'm not going from the outside in. I'm going from the top down. Does that make sense to everybody? I'm going to put a little bit of water on the outside just so that it can glide, and I'm going to get myself a little bit of speed. If you don't do this well, it's going to want to take off. It's going to stick to the dry clay inside of there, and it's going to rip right out of your hand if your pinky finger is not like a rock. I'm going to have my left elbow up high. I start right above my thick area, and then I just slowly go down. Keeping it straight up and down, making sure I'm not tipping my pot. I'm not pushing too tight. And the slower my wheel is going, the slower I am going. So I wish I had kicked this a little bit more. Once I get to the bottom, I'm going to gently bring it out. You see how nice and smooth that is? Okay. I'm going to take my needle tool. I'm going to hold that nice and flat. I kind of grip it because it wants to rip out. And I just look for it to peek through, and then I stop my wheel. And then I cut that little ring off. Goodbye, excess clay. Now, what we have to do here, y'all, is we have to get a 5-inch pot, okay? Minimum. Right here is 5 inches. So I'm at like 6 1/4, okay? So what we're gonna do is I'm actually gonna cut mine exactly to 5 inches so that I have something to grade you guys by. So if you can go from 4 to 5 inches, okay? 4 is not gonna be an A, but I'll accept it for a grade, okay? As long as you have it inside of 4 to 5 inches. 5 inches, you could possibly get an A. But I'm looking for straight up and down walls. I'm looking for a flat rim. I'm looking for centered walls so that they're the same size all the way around, not a chubby side and a skinny side. So I'm gonna go ahead, put this right here. I'm gonna do a little line right there. That's 5 inches. Put a little water. Outside at least. Nice and slowly through. Once I feel it go all the way, I'm going to lift it up. Does it look straight up and down still? Sure. Okay. Then at the end, the last thing we're going to do is I've got to double check that I don't have any water in there, and I'm pretty good. I mean, there's a little water in there, so I'm just going to suck it up. You don't want any water down there. And I do feel like I have a little bit of a rim sticking out. Do you guys see that?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to tack that right back in with a wee bitty little choke. Okay. In fact, I might just do the whole thing just a little bit. Straight up and down. Now, when you do your chamois, you're going to hold the two sides really firmly. Try to rip that out of my hand, Darren. It's not going anywhere. But do you see how I'm holding them loosely together so that it's still draping in the middle? So what you're going to do is you're holding it firm. If you don't hold it firm, it's going to rip out of your hand. It's going to ruin your whole pot right at the last second. Okay? I'm going to gently lift it, bend it over, and just go back and forth and try to get a nice round rim. Okay? And that's just the end deal there. Okay, so we're looking good. We got a 5-inch pot. Let's go ahead and just double check it, make sure I didn't mess something up. What if I had my ruler upside down? That'd be awful.
What is
It's like 1 millimeter higher than 5, which is perfect, okay? So that is what it is. So now when I'm done, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to use the wire tool. I'm gonna clean it off with my fingers. Now, you guys try to keep these always straight. See how this is bending right here? That can rip the cord and then it frays and it like literally cuts you. It's awful. So when you guys are using these, you always have to hang them so that they're hanging straight up. Now, what I like to do is I like to wrap two sides around my finger. And you guys, it wouldn't be pottery if it wasn't painful. Okay? So it's got to kind of hurt. And then you're going to put this side in your hand. You're going to keep your thumbs on the top and you always pull toward yourself. Now, something I do like to do is I like to put just a wee little bit of water there, and that helps it glide through. If you go slow, just don't go slow, okay? You're just going to go right through. It kind of wants to move, but I want to go 2 different directions. So I'm going to switch. I'm going to clean that off. I'm going to go a different direction. And now it's nice and loose. Did you see how nice and loose it was? I'm going to leave this and set an alarm on my phone for 3:31 p.m. I'm going to come back in here and I have to bag this as tightly as I can. Now, I will show you guys, if you are forgetful, if you constantly keep ruining your pots, you can bag them right now, but it is risky. I'm going to go ahead and do it so you guys can see it. What you do is you put a little bit of water inside of a bag. I mean, this is already like super wet, so you probably don't need to. But just in case it's like a long weekend or something, you can spray it. Now, what I like to do, if I have to bag it immediately, because I know I'm not going to be able to later, I'm going to make a nice little bag that's not gonna touch my piece. And then I'm gonna try to get it as close as I can. And it's gonna wanna suction and alter my piece. And then I'm just gonna put maybe just a little bit of leftover clay on there so that it keeps it nice and tight. This should be, because it's so wet and because I added water, and I just want to double check that the bag is all the way down. And I did a pretty good job. It doesn't seem to be warping the pot yet. It could, but it looks okay. This should be good for another 2 days. And then when I come in here, every class, you want to spray it and rebag it. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. Any questions about throwing a... How many of you guys feel like you got this? How many of you guys feel like you just forgot everything I did? What's a cylinder? Okay, I will help you along the way. I'm going to throw another pot back here while you guys are working. While you watch me clean up, I just want to remind my students that you must have 2 5-inch cylinders for this project. And because you are beginners, you're probably going to mess up a few times. This usually happens when you let your cylinders dry out, not properly spraying and bagging them before you trim them. But also, everyone usually botches the trimming a few times, to be honest with you. So I recommend that you throw at least 4 cylinders in the hopes that you'll have at least 2 decent ones in the end to turn in for a grade. And last, everybody, thank you so much for bearing through the camera focusing issues. I am so sorry. I thought I fixed it, and I didn't. I know that's so annoying. And for all of you that cone center, I'm so sorry, but I just never learned it. My professor at Indiana University taught me differently, and I could never switch. It's just kind of ingrained in me, so it is what it is. Thank you guys for watching, and happy day.